Ready to go.
I'm going to call this special council meeting to order. Before we proceed, I want to acknowledge that the land upon which we are all participating in this meeting at our various locations in Fort Erie is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee, Mississaugas of the Credit, and the Anishinaabe people, and is a subject of Mississauga's Treaty at Niagara of 1781, and Between the Lakes Treaty Number 3 of 1792. Madam Clerk, the roll call.
All members of council are present, your worship, with the exception of Councillor Butler.
Thank you. There are no announcements and there is no addendum to this particular meeting. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? There being none, then Councillor Noyes, you have a motion that council go into closed session. Could you proceed with that?
Yes, Mayor. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott. The council does now go into closed session at 5:30 p.m. to discuss the following. Pursuant to subject 239 in brackets 2 in brackets E of the Municipal Act 2001, litigation or potential litigation, including matters before administrative tribunals affecting the municipality or local board, and pursuant to subsection 239 in brackets 2 in brackets F, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose. RE LPAT appeal, Nikon Limited Construction Company, 625 Garrison Road, and 0-10389 Helena Street, official plan and zoning bylaw amendments.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. So before we go into closed session, I just want each of you to confirm that you are alone and that you are not recording the meeting once we go into closed session. And I'm going to start by going over who I can see on the screen, starting in the top left corner, and that'd be Councillor McDermott.
I'm alone and I'm not recording the meeting.
Thank you. Councillor Noyes?
I am alone and not recording the meeting.
Councillor Zanko?
I am alone and not recording the meeting.
Councillor Dubanow?
Okay. I'm alone and not recording the meeting.
Councillor Lubberts?
I'm alone and not recording the meeting.
Okay, so then we can go into closed session. Mr. Davis, I'll let you do your magic.
Sure. Okay, in there right now.
Okay, so Councillor Zanko, we're back in open session and you have a motion or to bring us
Yes,
back?
I do. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Dubanow, that council does now rise and reconvene from closed session at 5:57 PM with report that staff proceed as directed.
Any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That then takes us to consideration of bylaws. Does anyone wish any of those bylaws removed from the package? If not, then Councillor Dubanow, you have a motion for first and second reading of the bylaw package.
Yes, I do, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Zanko, that bylaw number 77-2021 to appoint Gerald Moore and Barbara Mosney as building inspectors for the corporation of the town of Fort Erie is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that those bylaws are on the floor for questions or comments. There are none, then I'll go to Councillor Lubberts for third and final reading of the bylaw package.
Yes, thank you very much, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by, I need a seconder,
Councillor McDermott,
Councillor McDermott, that bylaw number 77-2021 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and the clerk under the corporate seal.
all those in, are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Councillor Noyes, you have the next resolution regarding the confirmatory bylaw, first and second reading.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. Moved by myself and seconded by Councillor McDermott that bylaw number 78-2021 to confirm the actions of council at its special meeting held on June 14th, 2021 is given first and second reading.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And Councillor McDermott, third and final reading, please.
Thank you, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Noyes, that bylaw number 78-2021 is given third and final reading to be signed by the mayor and clerk under the corporate seal.
Are there any questions or comments? All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. And Councillor Dubanow, motion to adjourn.
Yes, Your Worship. Moved by myself, seconded by Councillor Zanko, that council adjourns at 6:01 PM to reconvene into a regular meeting of council on June 21st, 2021.
All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. So that concludes our special council meeting. And as soon as I get organized, we'll go to the council and committee meeting, which I now call to order. Madam Clerk, the roll call.
All members of council are present, your worship, with the exception of Councillor Butler.
Thank you. And there are no announcements. There is one addendum, and that relates to a delegation by Mr. Rick Boivin on behalf of the Crystal Beach Business Improvement Area Board of Management regarding report IS 18-1 and IS 29, both for 2021. And that will be item number 10.1 on our agenda. Are there any declarations of pecuniary interest? I don't have a pecuniary interest, but I want to point out that in dealing with the cannabis site plan matter, I no longer have a conflict of interest with respect to that or a pecuniary interest, so I will be participating in that type of discussion going forward. Notice of upcoming public meetings. There is a Crystal Beach Secondary Plan meeting, public meeting on June 21st, next Monday during our council meeting. And that will be by Zoom. And for individuals who want to participate, you can contact Peter Wasserman, Town Neighborhood Planner, either by telephone at 905-871-1600, extension 2503. And he can provide you with information, or you can send him an email at pwasserman@forterie.ca. There are no public meetings this evening. I'm going to hand the chair over to Councillor McDermott to deal with corporate and community services. And then when you're completed with the delegation and the business, Councillor McDermott, when you hand the chair back to me, we'll go into the consent agenda. So it's all over to you.
Thank you, Your Worship. Corporate and community services is now in session. We have one presentation tonight. Susan Chase, who's the Senior Consultant of the Erie Group Consulting, read the corporate software review.
And just bring her in right now, Councillor McDermott.
Thank you. Hi, Susan, can you hear us?
Hi, yes, I can hear you.
Okay, well, you're welcome to start, and welcome to the Town of Port Erie's council meeting.
Oh, thank you very much.
Appreciate you being here.
Oh, no, thank you very much for giving me the time. Really do appreciate that. Kelly, will you be sharing the slide deck or am I?
That'll be you. If you just share your screen and share the deck.
Okay, just give me a second here. All good?
Yep.
Perfect. Well, like I said, thank you very much. I'm super happy to be here to talk to you about the Corporate Systems Review Project. We conducted this in the last few months, and I've got a few slides here to go through. And of course, I'm more than happy to answer any questions that you may have. So first, just a little bit about us and why we're here. My name is Susan Chase, and I work for a company called Perry Group Consulting. We have been in business for a number of years now. I don't want to do a whole marketing spiel for you here, but I do want to say that we've got a long-term legacy. Several of us have actually worked for another company for well over 10 years. That was Prior and Prior Associates. Some of you may have heard of them. Every one of our consultants on the team have actually worked really in a municipality. None of us are just consultants that have been hired. All of us have with that real world experience. And we think that brings a lot of value to the work and the consultations that we can provide to our clients. We are very much focused on municipal clients. They're all that we work with, primarily in Ontario. We have stretched out a little bit, especially during the pandemic, to a little bit across Canada, in BC and up in the Yukon, which is kind of exciting. But we truly believe that technology has the power to build better municipalities. And that's why we actually have it as our mantra, or our mission statement is to build better municipalities. We think that technology can truly help to deliver better service and better value for the money. So just a little bit about the services we do provide, again, focused on municipalities. We do a lot of IT strategy work. A lot of our work these days is now starting to get into more digital strategies with a real focus on digital services to the customer base. So both internal and external customers. We do a lot of business solutions assessments, optimization of business processes. And I mentioned that because that's part of the work that we did for Fort Erie and the team there. So not to get too much into all of that, just a little bit of context for us here. If you need to know anything more about our company and the credentials that we bring, I'm more than happy to provide it to you, but I just didn't want to spend a lot of time on it. The COVID pandemic has certainly provided an opportunity for a lot of towns and cities, really government in general, to push a lot further with their use of technology. You've seen it yourself, the rush to get technology out so people could work from home, that sort of thing. We found that digital initiatives so far in this past year have really kind of short-circuited that kind of cautious approach that's often been taken by many municipalities on their journey through digital transformation to ensure basic operations can still go on during the pandemic. Aside from really expanding digital government, we know that remote working is here to stay. We know that municipalities need to find out how can they manage their operations better, more efficiently, more effectively, and remotely. Everything from those baseline operations to full stop like digital services so that your customers can actually get their services that they need from the town fully digital moving forward. So sadly, it kind of took a pandemic for a lot of us to realize this, but what is of interest to us is Fort Erie, they recognized that they had the need to take a look at their corporate systems, take a look at what was in place, what systems were they using, were they working well for them, where were there opportunities to optimize, to be even more efficient, or to modernize their systems. So we really appreciated that kind of proactive approach. So we do know, like I said, that modern organizations really do use technology to simplify their processes and really to enhance service delivery for staff and for their customers. And by customers, of course, we mean the residents, businesses, and any of the other stakeholders that might be around. We do know that before the pandemic, over 94% of Canadians are actually already online. We also know that over 76% of Canadians own at least one smartphone, and 88% of Canadians actually bank online. And again, this has really been highlighted throughout the whole pandemic. Societally, we have seen massive changes with some of these big companies like Amazon, Netflix, and Google, and again, overemphasized over this past year. We also know, a few additional numbers for you, that 70% of seniors are online now. It's the fastest growing population accessing the internet these days. 80% of Ontarians actually book their vaccine appointments online. Some might be helped by caregivers, friends, or family, but 80% were all done online. That's a significant number and a recognition of the power of digital. 85% of Canadians made purchases online in the past year. I think all of these really show that willingness and that propensity to move online. Services are going there and expectations are there for everybody, including government. So great service is any of these things, right? It should be easy to use. It needs to be convenient, fast, and efficient. And digital services are really no different. I've got another slide coming up in a minute that emphasizes this. But it's really important that we recognize this as we take a look at the technology that the municipality is using and how effective is it meeting the needs of the customer. And again, customers, internal and external. The previous Treasury Board president actually stated, we can't be a blockbuster government serving Netflix citizens. And that's so true, especially for local government, I'm finding. The Canadian government has had their Canadian Digital Service and their program underway for a number of years. Ontario has the same thing. They've got the new Ontario Digital Service. It's really time that local municipalities get right on board and start moving ahead with this. So in this time of Amazon, Netflix, and all those other digital service channels, and again, through the pandemic, we've seen a lot of shifting to, Indigo, Loblaws, the local store are all moving to online services. The government needs to really be able to keep up, and especially local government, because we know that local government is so close to those customers, our residents. We know that banking, government is often compared to banking. So people still need access to the services, like I said, and information in order to do their job, to do their business. As we look to improve business processes, and we did a lot of that through this project, it's really important to look at a process from start to finish. You can't have something digital at the very first point, like an online form, for example, and then it gets submitted, and then all the back-end processes are very manual. That's not an efficient way of dealing with things. Similarly, what we often see is the very last piece might be digital, but all the upfront work isn't. So there's no point in having the customer having to do a very manual process and staff have it fully digitized. The opposite is also true. We don't want a customer doing something online, like an online service request, and then staff have all manual processes afterwards. It's just not efficient or effective at all. So banking, that's why I have this slide here. It's really been one of the best examples of digitizing an entire process. Most of you will remember back in the day when we started, we had to go into the bank Monday to Friday, between 9 to 4, type with the 9 to 3, actually, I remember that. And we had to speak to a teller, and that was how we did business. Then we eventually moved to the ATM model, which gave us a lot more flexibility. We could bank whenever we wanted. We still had some limitations, but it was a lot more possible to us. Then we moved to online services. And then finally, I have an app on my phone where I can deposit a check, if I get a check, by taking a photo of it. And it's deposited right away for me, and I can see it pretty quickly. This has been able to take place because the banks have worked at digitizing all of their process from front end to the back end, back and forth every which way. I'm not saying this is easy. Banking, they've been working at this for over 30 years. So it does take some time to get there, but it's a conscious, thoughtful approach to do the digitization of the processes. And this is super important as we look to modernizing the town's business, how town conducts its business and delivers services to its customers. These are just a few of the key trends that we've seen in municipalities. I'm not going to talk to all of these because there's quite a few. You may have heard of a few of them. There's quite a bit going on, especially for government, starting to take advantage of a lot of these. And again, the pandemic has really accelerated that whole process. So we're moving much more quickly now. I mentioned this slide, not that the town is moving towards a lot of these imminently, but they are thoughts. They are things that people expressed interest in. We know that some of these processes and some of these technologies and solutions can provide greater benefits, such as analytics gives a lot of information to improve decision making because it's based on fact now, not based on what that one person has said. So there's opportunities here. We talked with the staff about it through the interviews that we had with all the different departments, not just the digital services team, but all the businesses as well. And they mentioned some of these things. So I just bring this slide forward just kind of as a summary for you to see this is the sort of thing that we're actually talking about. And of course, there's real world examples of many of these things. So this one here is renew a license plate sticker. Again, all of you have probably gone through this, and many of you remember back in the day when we had to go line up. It was a very difficult, onerous process. My contention here is that if, you know, Ontario government can digitize their processes and make some of these things so simple and so easy for us to do, such as getting your license plate sticker renewed, then local government can certainly do the same thing. The other important part to mention here, this is the type of service to which your services are now being compared to. If people are expecting that Amazon-like service with everything that they do. So as we were reviewing Fort Erie's corporate systems, we kept this in mind. What are the expectations of the end customer? How can we best make sure that things are in place that we can move forward to deliver on what's needed moving forward? I have just another example here. Of course, the COVID, the vaccine appointments, we saw that. We saw the challenges that they had up front. One of the reasons I like to bring this example forward is I think the vaccination online booking was an excellent example of government moving quickly to get something online that was easy to use, ready to use. Yeah, there were a few glitches, but they fixed it very quickly to now it's a seamless process for most people. And that's a new way that we're seeing many projects being implemented now. It doesn't have to be 100% perfect. It doesn't have to be totally clean. Of course, we're going to protect security. Of course, we're going to protect privacy, but we can do things quicker than we've ever done before. And the pandemic, again, has proven it. And the vaccine appointment, I think, has proven it even more. So enough about that, you know, why it's important to do this, why it's important. And we so value the digital services team and this leadership team of moving forward with this project. It's super important that you take a look at the systems you have in place. Are they meeting the needs of your current workplace and of your customers right now? So what we did, this is just a slide showing the overview and our methodology of how we approach this project. We started off, of course, with the discovery phase. So we talked to a lot of people. I mentioned down here, we had 12 interviews conducted. Each interview was with all the different business departments, multiple people in the departments. We got a lot of feedback from them. We issued a survey that all the staff were able to respond to. We had over 91 responses. That was phenomenal. We were really pleased with that. And then of course, we delivered a report to the leadership team about the current state. And the current state had all the findings and everything. And I'm not going into a lot of it here, of course, for you, but I'm sure they can fill you in, and the full report has some of the details in there. Then we moved over to the strategy phase. And this is where we took a look at what were the potential opportunities. We did a deep dive into a lot of the processes, and there's a lot of processes, but we worked with the leadership team to prioritize that list, huge list, down to 11. And we came up with 15 opportunities for improvements for them. And then we delivered a roadmap on that. And then finally, we just prepared the final document that you have in your agenda there. We gave some cost benefit analysis and delivered the final report. So very quickly, just going through this, some of the key positives that we did find, because I know council is certainly interested in this. The technical infrastructure is very stable. There's minimal disruptions. We found that there's a lot of positive things in the way Kelly and his team has built the network, and kudos to them. There's solid internet connections, and there's capacity for increased use. So as you move towards greater digitization and modernization, you should have the capacity for that. There's a lot of positive upgrades to the firewalls, security. They know about security. They know how very important it is, and they're working on it. They're currently working on a new DR plan, disaster recovery plan as well. So we think they're moving in a very positive direction there. There's a lot of custom solutions development using the Notes platform, and the skill set of the people who can do that custom development is very good. We think that there's opportunities there to improve as we move forward, but even still, what you've got in place right now is working very, very well. For example, one of the examples we put forward here is the parking ticket lifecycle system. That's a whole bunch of words for the parking ticket system. That has been fully digitized from start to end. And we're really pleased to see that. Like I mentioned earlier, we often see that it's a little bit choppy, but in this case, it isn't. And of course, the town's website, we found a number of online services already available. So we found that very positive as well. So when we look at the digital services department, and we did do an assessment of them, we talked to them a lot about their skills, their strengths, their weaknesses, that sort of thing, what opportunities they saw. We have this pyramid here that we show, and most often we find that many municipal IT departments are actually in that solid utility. So they keep the lights on, you know, you turn your computer on, it works, you pick up your phone and it works, and it's that sort of thing. These guys are a little above that. So we were very pleased to see that as well. They are that trusted supplier. They do provide some critical functionality, and they provide even more services to staff, and that's very positive. We really want to see them up here at this target state. Where they're a partner player. So that means when a business department has a new problem that they need to solve or a challenge, digital services team are right there at the beginning of the conversation. Is there a technical solution to this? Can we help you analyze the process? Are there opportunities for improvement? Because they do have that skill set. And that's a big part of what we did. So the real focus, like I said, on this particular project was to review those business processes. So what I've got very quickly for you is just some charts and diagrams and that. And I know they're not all that meaningful right now, but I did want to give you an example. This is an example of the current financial systems. So you'll see there's all sorts of different bits and pieces, and that's literally what it is. There's all sorts of different bits and pieces, different software products coming together, trying to provide a solution. What this really has resulted in is a bunch of little workaround pieces around here as well. So the data doesn't flow consecutively through all of these systems very efficiently. There's opportunities for error, and the error is often because of human error, because you're entering into multiple systems, or because some of the data is in the system, some of the data is in an Excel spreadsheet, that sort of thing. I am not by any means suggesting that the staff don't know what they're doing with your financials data or anything like that. The problem is they don't have a really good system to help them with it. So it's not as efficient as it should be. So we have given some examples and options for them, that's what I was thinking of there, of what they could actually do. So the business function that we looked in was all the multiple different finance processes that there were, the multiple different systems that were in use. The level of digitization was just medium. We had a whole scale that we talked to them about it, and the level of integration was low. And that's what I mean by that constant human intervention. Again, not saying that they're making errors, just saying there's a lot of room for improvement there. So then what we did was we gave them an example of what it could look like if they got, for example, a full financial ERP as an enterprise resource planning system, and it just means a corporate-wide system that everybody uses. And you notice that's the box down there at the bottom in the middle, finance ERP. All of the systems are in one place, and that means all the other bits and pieces can actually feed into it, and it feeds out what it needs to do. So it just becomes that much more efficient. Works for everybody. Everybody has access to that same system and that same technology. I know I'm going over time, Kelly, I'm sorry. Then what we did was we gave them a detailed assessment and enough information to help the staff, the team, go out for a request for proposal or something if they wanted. So we talked about the business process to be automated, what the key objectives are of that process. So why is that important to us? And then we gave them some details of the different modules that they were going to need. And then we did a bit of a market analysis for them. So based on what we see our other clients doing of similar size and shape and context and demographic and all that, we provided some options that the town can consider just as a preamble before you go through the formal procurement process. So they have an idea. There are options out there. There are other solutions that we can be looking at. So there's a whole bunch of stuff in here, and you'll see that all in the report. That's the bulk of the report, is this sort of information. But that brought us to our final recommendations. And the final recommendations can actually be summarized into these, 5 different high-level recommendations. So number one is there are certain circumstances where it's time to get a new system. So, get the budget together, get the resources together, get the necessary approvals, go out to RFP or partner with another agency or however it's going to be done. But these are the systems that are actually needed to be replaced or to be implemented. We recognize that not all of these can be done in 1 year or anything like that. So we have given some suggested timelines for how it can be done. So for example, we think it's really important that you have the financial solution in place before you add other systems that need to integrate with a finance system. So treat it as kind of the foundational piece. I don't have to go through all of these with you. I'm sure you might have some interest in some of them. One of the ones I will point out here, besides the finance, is to replace the notes, email, and calendaring system. So the town is very heavy in using the Domino's notes environment for email and calendaring, all that sort of stuff. It's a great system. It works really well. It's just not compatible with most of the other solutions that are out there for the municipality, and not what most of the other municipalities and your partners will use. Most are using the Microsoft suite. Some are using Google. The team's done a great job of making it a little bit more seamless, but there are challenges. And we think it's time that you probably get on board with what would be considered a more best of breed solution. The next one is develop some more in-house solutions. We don't often recommend that there's a lot of in-house work that's done by IT departments. We actually prefer that you buy more off the shelf and customize maybe the integrations or working with your partners. But you've got a team in place right now that knows what they're doing, and they're doing it very well. They're documenting it well. They're creating good solutions. They're listening to the client, their users. So we think there's a few opportunities that they can continue to expand on that as we move forward, with the eventual note of probably replacing them at some point. Several systems can be enhanced. So we identified these places where there are opportunities that, you know, they're going this far in the system and then they're going out and they're using an Excel spreadsheet or a Word document or something. So let's bring in another module. Let's enhance what you've got in place, leverage the strength of the technology you have, and make it a more fulsome solution for you. There's a couple of systems that need completely to be replaced, but there's some work to be done. So there's got to be some further review on it. There's got to be ways of figuring, they have to do some analysis to figure out what's going to be the best solution. And then we had some, what we called other recommendations. So for example, the IT service management. So this means kind of standard operating procedures for the IT team. We found that there was some gaps. They had some in place, but some gaps. So we've given them some ideas on and some suggestions on where they can improve that. We'd like to see them to implement what we call an application architecture, not what we call, but what is called an application architecture. So that's kind of an overall view of how all your software solutions, business applications, and everything fit into place, and a roadmap. So just how you might do an asset lifecycle plan, it's the same thing with your software. It's a software asset lifecycle plan. We also found that there was a resource gap, and we talked quite a bit, Kelly, about this. We think that there is the need for a project manager, business analyst type skill to be brought in. So this is a person who can better interpret what the business actually needs into technology. So to do this kind of process flow documentation, as well as helping to actually implement the project. Next, we just gave some timelines. Like I said, this was really hard to schedule because we know that council has a lot of priorities on their plate, a lot of asks for budget, and we recognize fully that budget is very limited. So what we did was we tried to give the town a level of impact, a level of difficulty, how long it might take to implement, and some ideas on costs. So that way they can best fit it into the schedule as needed moving forward. These costs, of course, are all based on, again, what we've seen of some of our other clients realize. We know fully that you're going to do a procurement process. The numbers might not be exact, but it's probably going to be pretty close. And just we've laid it all out with all of the ones that have been identified earlier. So we've given that level of detail. So our goal with this is really that you end up having common systems right in the middle that everybody can access. And everybody can access it. And that's why we put all of these different users really on here. So people out in the field working, people inside working, people focused on customer service versus the back office staff. We need to see it, you know, apps all using the same technology. So you don't want all those disparate systems around. You want everybody using the same systems, the same data. So a piece of data that's entered by that customer service agent goes into the common system eventually, so that somebody who is on the phone gets that same answer. We also think that council and senior management should have access to some of these systems. Obviously, again, privacy concerns, access controls will be in place so that it is appropriately shared. But the point is you have the common systems in the middle, not multiple spreadsheets, not different systems all over the place, so that everybody can have access to the same technology and data. and the vital information that you need to better serve your customer. And that is my speedy version of the report. So thank you very much. I want to take this opportunity as well to really thank Kelly, his team, and of course, Tom and the whole team at the town. They were great. They gave us the time that we needed, the information we needed. They were simply wonderful. So thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chase. Is there any questions by councillors? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor McDermott. I'm hoping there's not a quiz on the presentation because I probably wouldn't pass. But my question is in regards to the percentage, I think was your second slide about 82%, 88%, whatever. By any chance that you have any idea what the percentage of people in Fort Erie have access to the internet and stuff like that? Because we have a very rural community here. I don't know if those stats are available, but if you have any idea how much of our population may not have access.
Through you, Mayor. You know what? We actually did have a conversation about that. We know, I don't have the full numbers right in front of me right now. I do apologize. We do know that there are some areas of the community that are challenged with internet service. But we do also know that there was high the demographics were high for technology use. But further than that, I really hate to quote anything on there right now. I would have to get back to you on that.
Well, if I can, Councillor McDermott, thank you for that explanation. My ward is Ward 6, and we're a very rural community, and I get several calls every month about when's high speed coming and when are we going to have reliable internet. But again, I think it is coming, and I do think that this is the direction we should go. So thank you for your presentation.
You're welcome.
Are there any further questions of Ms. Chase? Seeing none, thank you very much for your delegation tonight.
Thank you very much.
So we'll move on, and there are no reports. Are there any new business inquiries? Seeing none, anything on the business status report? Give it back to you, Your Worship.
Thank you very much, Councillor McDermott. I did neglect to mention that next Monday, June the 21st, is National Indigenous Peoples Day. And we do have a council meeting next week, but I want to give everyone the heads up on that. So that takes us to the consent agenda. Are there any reports that anyone wishes removed from the consent agenda? Madam Clerk, I would like to remove PDS 43-2021. And we can deal with that separately. Can I have a motion to move then the package, the consent agenda package, except for PDS 43? Councillor Zanko, are there any questions or comments that anyone has on any of the reports in the modified package? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. My one question is about CS-06-2021, the capital variance report. I did notice in the report that there was a comment about a 44% surplus. So I had an opportunity of talking to Mr. Jansen and was wondering whether that was the norm or above. So I think it might be helpful for Mr. Jansen to explain it to council, because it was an eye opener for me. Here I thought we had a ton of extra money to move around. But when the bigger picture comes, it gets changed. So I'm just wondering if Mr. Jansen can comment on the 44%. Surplus.
Mr. Jansen.
Through you to Councillor Noyes. So this closing of capital includes a number of projects that were closed with no activity or no expenditures. So there was 8 in total. There's a couple instances where we have grants that weren't budgeted, as well as there was 2 projects that had some very significant changes in scope. So when you adjust for some of those, especially on the side of the projects that we're closing that did not proceed, the variance is just under 10%. So much more in line with what we would expect. So that is the main reason with this report. There are just, and you can tell by looking at the report in the actual expenditure column, you can see which items are being closed that did not proceed. Some of them will be rebudgeted potentially, but some of them are not proceeding.
Councillor Noyes?
Well, thank you. That's all.
Any other councillors? Chief, with respect to FES 05, that is the award for the refurbishment of the fire training tower, I note that there are other fire departments that use the tower periodically. Would that generate much in the way of rental revenue or anything beyond covering some of the maintenance costs?
Sorry, through you, Mayor. We've upped the user fees in the tower, and for the training tower, for the classroom, we now expense the cost of propane, straw, incidentals. We didn't used to recover those costs, but we do now. And we're also in discussions with the province about the regional training center, and there, because of the closing of Gravenhurst, the Ontario Fire College site, we are now in discussions on recovering more costs, including offsetting the wear and tear and damage on facilities that are used like ours are. And we should be able to see some light at the end of the tunnel on those costs also.
Thank you very much, Chief. I think it's very important, and I believe this council has over the years indicated that it's very important for our volunteer firefighters to have the best equipment and the best training possible. So this fits in with that, and we appreciate your good work. If there are no other questions or comments with respect to the items in the consent agenda, I'm going to call the question. All those in favor of the recommendations? None opposed. So that then will take us to PDS 43-2021. Can I have a mover for that? Councillor Dubanow. Are there any questions or comments with respect to that? Councillor Noyes.
I'm just concerned about the number of extensions that have happened over the years. I think this is the 7th request for extensions. I'm just wondering, how long this is going to go on. I did read obviously the staff report, but again, when's enough?
Well, that's a very good question, and somewhat goes to the heart of my concerns, because this would be the 7th. The recommendation is that it be extended to May the 15th, 2022, which is 1 year. And that would mean it will have been on the books for 15 years, I believe, Ms. Dolch.
Yes, that's correct. And generally, I can explain a bit more in terms of the condominium. So the way a condominium works in most cases is the roads, servicing, lighting, everything's put in place prior to the registration and actual entrance into the condominium. In a number of cases, actually, the units are actually built before condominiums entered into. So we have a number of situations. One's Abano Dunes up in Point Avenue area. That's been on the books since 1980. Again, in some cases, that's under the old Condominium Act, but a lot of times that's what occurs with condominiums. So in this situation, everything is in place, the servicing, the roads, the lighting. They're just trying to finalize their condominium documents, and they are moving towards that now. There was a bit of a delay, but they are moving towards that now.
Councillor Noyes?
Nothing further, thank you.
Anyone else? So, Ms. Dolch, this may have already been addressed by a staff, because I note that the approval actually would have expired a year ago in May of 2020, and it's been continuously extended temporarily by staff. And I believe that more recently you've heard council, and we do receive notices if there's a temporary extension by staff, and it looks like they're fairly short temporary extensions. So is this type of situation something that we can anticipate we won't be seeing in the future, where there's this lengthy extension through temporary extensions by staff?
Your worship, that's correct. We are notifying you now. Rather than doing the larger extensions, we are notifying you of shorter extensions, and we'll continue to do so.
The other thing that I find puzzling is that the developer, not just in this particular case, but in other cases, seems to require a reminder from the municipality that they're about to lose their approval for a project that many of them have put hundreds of thousands of dollars into. Is that correct, or are we just seeing the proactive approach being taken by our staff to make sure that developers don't miss a date?
Your worship, it is a proactive initiative by staff, definitely, and not all municipalities do it. We do pride ourselves on letting them know and giving them some warning on when it's coming up and things like that. The responsibility is ultimately on them to make sure that their subdivision or condominium doesn't lapse, but we do try to provide that service, because we do strive for excellent customer service at the town of Fort Erie.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And then my final area of questioning on this really relates to when the developer requests an extension. So in this particular case, the request was made in March of 2021, which was many, many months after the original approval would have expired, except for the temporary extensions by staff. And I presume that staff, when they notify the developer that their approval is about to lapse, notify them that they should be putting in a letter of requesting an extension?
Your worship, yes, they should right away put in that letter of request. Sometimes we don't hear from them. Sometimes it depends. Sometimes it could be a change of ownership, other things, but sometimes we just don't hear and we have to follow up repeatedly.
And then the final question has to do with, so this particular developer requested an extension in March of 2021, and then several months later, in May of 21, actually paid the fee for the extension. So I'm not sure about the rest of council, but my view is that it's not and I think the public, the service, customer service, I think that's very important on the one hand. On the other hand, it's not our job to remind developers that their investment is in jeopardy. And I'm wondering if we have any latitude to require some type of larger fee for a renewal request if it comes in after the date when the approval would otherwise have lapsed.
Your worship, we could, that would be a fees and charges schedule issue that we would have to look at. In terms of, a larger fee just for extension of draft plan approval, that's something we could do. In terms of the fee for lapsing, I think that would be more difficult because obviously we're offering temporary extensions. Otherwise, it does just lapse. So they don't ever really lapse. In terms of a larger draft plan extension fee, we could look at, we'd have to have some costing. I'd have to work with finance team, but generally the amount of work that goes into it, that's generally what we look for is cost recovery. But we could look at doing an additional fee depending on how old they are. I know the region did that at one point. If it was older than 2006, there was one fee. And if it was, because it does take a little more staff time if they are older subdivisions to go back to those files. So that's something we could look at instead. It's just charging two separate fees depending on the age of the subdivision.
I think that would be something you might want to look into. And the other thing I think we should be doing is making sure that developers appreciate that this is the approval that they get is based on circumstances that existed at the time they were initially given the approval. And that thereafter, each time there's an extension, we have to look at what the conditions or circumstances are. This particular situation, it's any of the issues that would need to be addressed have been addressed. Much of the servicing has already been done. I understand that, I get that. And they look like they're going to have things in order by the end of the year so that the one-year extension may not be necessarily required by them. But I know that I did raise with Mr. Walsh during a meeting that we had in Crystal Beach on Schooley Road actually last week, that the property was looking a little ragged with the long grass, et cetera. So, that's one thing that I think we could be looking at. And then the second thing is, I don't think that the developers should take for granted that they're going to be getting necessarily an extension whenever they request it in whatever time frame they decide to do it, because theoretically this money, and this request should have been dealt with a year ago. Anyways, I know I'm not supposed to be commenting, I'm supposed to be asking questions, but I think you get the drift. Any other questions or comments? Then I'll call the question on the recommendation to extend the approval to May 15th, 2022. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. That completes the consent agenda. And then that takes us to Planning and Development Services, Councillor Dubanow.
Yes, Your Worship. Planning and Development Services is now in session. We have no presentations or delegations this evening. However, we have a couple of reports on the agenda. The first report we have is PDS 12 2021. That's 2043 Garrison Road, Fort Erie, the site plan agreement on the south side of Garrison Road. That was postponed from February 8th, 2021. Was previously moved by Councillor Lubberts. I believe we have the report as well as a memo to postpone this to a date. I'm wondering if we can, if a member of council would like to put that on the floor.
Yeah, I'll move that we adjourn it to August the 9th, 2021, Chair.
Thank you, Your Worship. So the postponement is now on the floor. Do any members of council have any questions, comments with regard to the timing? All right, I'll call the question then. All those in favor?
Well, Chair, did you want some
You know
comment?
what? I didn't want to violate the rules of procedure here. I already called the question. I made the mistake of asking for the postponement, and I see that Councillor Noyes here. Councillor Noyes, do you want to? Is there a question you wanted to ask? I'll let you go ahead and do that.
I'll withdraw my my motion to defer.
I try to be fair that way, Your Worship. I kind of messed up my own fairness policy. Councillor Noyes, please go ahead.
I guess, yes, thank you, Councillor Dubanow. What I wanted, and I had a chance to talk to Ms. Dolch earlier today, a little bit more information in regards to what I understand from the residents reporting that there was an illegal grow off there around 3 years ago. And that I have concerns that we don't have the details or the history of this in regards to if they're illegal 3 years ago or around 3 years ago. And I understand they left their stuff there after they were closed down, and that was one of the bylaw infractions. How did they come about to being able to get a license to move forward? I wouldn't mind knowing the history behind this. Does the left hand know what the right hand is doing in regards to, okay, you're charged with something, but you can still get a license? I thought perhaps you weren't supposed to be able to if you're charged or whatever, but I don't have all the details, so I wouldn't have minded when they're looking into the report that comes forward, a little bit of history on this particular property and the reported illegal grow up, because again, I wasn't on council at the time, so I'm not really sure of the details. And the other thing was that, is there any way that we can, in the site plan, I understand that they're going to be using cannabusters, but cannabusters, although they're supposed to be quite good, do require a fair amount of maintenance. And if the current owners have not really complied with bylaw orders, and basically the town has had to hire private and then basically send them the bill, how can we be assured that, again, can it be put on the site plan or something to make sure they are compliant with the requirements of the cannabusters?
Thank you, Councillor Noyes. Ms. Dolch, would you have perhaps an answer to some of that now, or perhaps might even be able to include some of that when it comes back, assuming it does?
Through you to the councillor, I can include some of that in the next memo back to council, but I can speak to you just a bit on the cannabuster system and the maintenance. So in our agreements right now, we do make sure that we have a clause in all our agreements for these types of operations that say that they do have to maintain the system and that maintenance is required. I can look at, and maybe we can talk to our solicitor about some penalty should it not be maintained, or how we make sure there's compliance a little bit further, but we do currently have that in all our agreements for cannabis. And the history, we'll get the more details. I can advise though, however, that a license is issued to the actual grower or the person responsible on site. Based on my review of the legislation, it's not necessarily the owners or the corporation. So, you could have a licensed grower that's made the application to Health Canada. They may have not been convicted of any offense. So that's where the difficulties do lie.
Thank you, Ms. Dolch. Councillor Noyes, was there anything else?
Nothing else. I appreciate the response. And I do hope that somehow we can put the maintenance for the cannabusters in there, because again, if they haven't followed the laws or the requirements now, what makes us think that they're going to do it in the future? Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Noyes. But before I go back to his worship, do any of the other members of council have any questions? Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. I just one question. I just need some clarification on when this comes back, what are we going to be voting for? Because in the recommendation, it's that we're authorizing to enter into a site plan, and we're authorizing staff to prepare a site plan agreement. But on page 4, it says that the site plan, along with the security requirements, have been provided to the developer for review, and that staff will be finalizing the site plan agreement. So are we going to be voting on a final site plan agreement or a draft site plan agreement?
Ms. Dolch, do you want to clarify that?
Sure, thank you. Through you to the councillor. It will be the final site plan agreement when we get to that stage. At this point, it was a draft plan, a site plan agreement that was under review for them. They have reviewed it, so we're in a position now. Obviously, we do have some additions now to add to that based on the commentary from council. So that will be added, as well as notes to the site plan and other things that we're looking for yet before we proceed with recommendation for you to authorize entry. So that's what we're waiting for. In the next memo, you'll see the additions. And we'll probably have the amended bylaw if that works for the clerk. I don't want to say too much.
Madam Clerk, did you want to comment?
If the conditions that come back with your memo are what council has requested, then I believe you could bring back bring your bylaw forward. But if it deviates from that, then I think you need to bring another report or something for council to approve.
Thank you, Madam Clerk. Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you very much, Mr. Chair. So I'm still confused as to what it is they're going to be bringing forward. Is it going to be something that we need to amend, or is it something that is final? I mean, obviously there's going to be some changes that need to be made. And I want to make sure that we know what we're voting on.
That's a good point. I see the clerk's hand up. If the clerk wanted to comment.
I was just going to suggest, and if you're not comfortable with it, that's fine. When the bylaw comes forward, and assuming that there's going to be a memo with it that says that, yes, this is what you required, this is what's in the agreement. And in this case, I think it would actually be a very good idea to have the site plan agreement attached to the bylaw. That way council can see it.
Councillor Lubberts, I saw his worship's hand up. Is there something you wanted to add before I went to him?
Yeah, if that's
sorry, Councillor Lubberts, was it a response to that, your worship?
No, I'm just trying to get further clarification. Councillor Lubberts can go ahead.
Yeah, Councillor Lubberts, please.
Yeah, I get what the clerk is saying, but what I need to know is the changes that we commented on and that we were requesting when the report was on the floor originally, that's going to be changed. But if there's any other changes, then I think staff needs to bring forward a recommendation to amend. Right? Is that what I'm hearing from the clerk?
Yes, that's exactly what I said. If there was going to deviate, then you should bring forward a report with the new recommendations in it.
The new recommendations to, okay, all right. So as long as we know. Okay, I'm okay with that then. Thanks.
Thank you, Councillor Lubberts. Your worship, was there something you wanted to add?
Yeah, no, just, so the original report has a list of special provisions. So I presume that if we get an additional report, we'll have a list of additional special provisions. And I think as the clerk has suggested, we would have the draft agreement for approval. Is that how this is going to roll out? And that draft agreement then would be the subject of the bylaw at the next following regular council meeting. Is that how we're going to do this?
That's how I understood, but Madam Clerk, you just want to confirm?
Yes,
Yep.
that's correct. I'm making
Okay.
notes so we don't forget.
Thank you.
Good.
I didn't see any other hands up after Councillor Lubberts spoke. I'll give an opportunity if anyone wants to raise their hand now. Good, not seeing anyone. Your worship, do you want to move the postponement again?
I move that we defer the report to August the 9th, Council and Committee meeting of August 9th, 2021.
Thank you, Your worship. That is on the floor. Do any members of council have questions or comments with respect to timing? Not seeing any, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. Thank you. So that now moves us on to PDS 19-2021. That is a proposed zoning bylaw amendment at 0-13365 Pettit Road. And again, we have another memo with this one, but I'm not going to make the same mistake. This was also previously moved by Councillor Zanko on, looks like April 12th, 2021. Before we move on to the memo, do any members of council have any questions or comments? Okay, so I'm seeing none. Is there a member of council who wants to move the recommendation from the memo to postpone the report? Councillor Zanko? And what date did you want to postpone that to?
Well, I believe it's suggested to postpone it to September the 13th, Council and Committee meeting.
Yep, that's what I see here. So it's September 13th. So that's on the floor right now. Do any members of council have any questions or comments with respect to the timing? Okay, seeing none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Passes unanimously. And that then moves us on right now to PDS 45-2021. That is the development fee relief for the creation of affordable housing for nonprofit organizations. Can I get a mover for that? Councillor Zanko. That report is now on the floor for questions or comments from council. Your worship.
Yeah, I obviously support this, but I wanted to get an understanding of how this policy, if this were approved and we moved forward with the policy, how that differs from what we did last month in connection with the waiving of development charges for the near market rate units. Does that advance this at all?
Ms. Dolch?
Through you to his worship, the difference with what was done with the Lions property on at High Street was that there is no agreement per se required for them to secure those for long-term affordable units based on the Fort Erie market rate affordable. This would require each person that we give exemption to for not-for-profit to enter into that agreement. I can advise, though, that we have talked to the High Street owners since then. They are amenable to entering into that agreement in any event. So it would be the same in essence. It just at the time it wasn't, it didn't occur that way.
Yeah, okay, that's fine. And I appreciate that. And I appreciate the Douglas Heights group being willing to enter into the agreement. I guess had I been thinking about it at the time, we could have included that as a condition in terms of the approval of the waiving of the development charges, but all's well that ends well. This policy, though, we could still, this would not address the units that aren't at or below actual market rate. So council can still do whatever it wishes in terms of waiving or not waiving. This is confined to, I mean, it does address, I think, the situation and does provide us with parameters for nonprofit organizations. The number of occasions where this will arise, I think, are fairly nominal, but I do think that there is a distinction between providing assistance to nonprofit organizations who are trying to provide housing, which may not necessarily strictly meet the definition of affordable, but is worthy of recognition by this council, as opposed to private enterprise, which would obviously have a profit motive and may not be able to meet the parameters that a nonprofit organization can. So I support the policy. I appreciate the work that staff has put into this. And thank you, Chair.
No, thank you, Your Worship. Any other members of council have any questions or comments? Councillor Lubberts.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair. I just wonder if I can get a little better explanation on page 5 of the report under financial implications, the chart that's there. The paragraph above says an example of a recent development illustrates the financial implications of waiving development fees. The budget increase of 292,000 results in 1% in the increase in the general levy. This example would result in a 2% increase in the general levy to account for waived fees. And I don't know how a 2% increase in the general levy gets factored in, because it's fees that you're not going to collect, and it's not an expenditure to the town, because this recent, I'm assuming it's Douglas Heights recent, the infrastructure is there. And it's just a matter of a building permit and cash in lieu of parkland. So if you don't collect the money and you don't spend the money, how does it create a 2% increase?
Ms. Dolch, would this question be better for Mr. Jansen, or is this something you can head off?
Through you to the council, I can start. Perhaps Mr. Jansen wants to jump in as well, but I can start. So the fees there, obviously the official plan, zoning and site plan fees, those are the fees that we collect to cover staff time and resources. So obviously that offsets some staff budget costs, things like that. So that's where, that money does need to be accounted for, and that's why it's been shown there. Building permit is the same. Obviously we collect those fees. And there's things that those building permit fees go to. And building permit fees, for example, are legislated to only be used for building required items, such as additional staffing and other things that are needed for building. Cash in lieu of parkland, the same thing applies. We may not have a park plan, but it does fund parks and park development. So that's something, obviously, if 124,000 isn't going to that fund, it affects parkland development in the future. And it does need to be reimbursed so that parkland redevelopment and replacement of parks can continue. The same thing applies for town development charges. So obviously we have a number of items in the town development charges that help fund different programs. We have obviously parks, we have infrastructure, we have all those things that are included in development charges that are obviously impacted if we do waive those fees that do need to still be funded And that's where obviously the general levy comes in.
Thank you, Ms. Dolch. Does that answer your question, Councillor Lubberts?
So I just some clarification from Jonathan then. So based on the recent decision by council, next year's budget, we're going to start at a 2% increase. Is that what this chart is saying?
Mr. Jansen, do you want to answer that question?
Sure, through you, Chair, to Councillor Lubberts. It's just representing that in any given year that type of revenue foregone. And this is something we bring up annually through our fees report during budget as well, where the town does require certain works to be done. If those existing revenue sources aren't available, then the impact would be 2% on the levy. So this isn't an annual impact that's being presented, so it's not 2% going forward, but should the town need to raise those funds for those projects in next year's budget, it would be a 2% increase, yes.
Thank you,
Okay,
Mr. Jansen.
all right. Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Lubberts. Any other members of council have questions, comments? All right, seeing none, so I'll call the question. All those in favor? Looks like it passes unanimously. So that ends the reports for this evening. So that brings us then to new business or inquiries. Any members of council have any new business or inquiries under planning and development services this evening? All right. Business status report. Any questions or comments? I think we have a fairly busy July 12th council and committee meeting. And I'm just, actually, I'll just really quickly, any questions, comments from council? Because I'm going to ask a question myself. All right. Oh, your worship.
Yeah, we'll be looking to Mr. Cookett to make sure that he rationalizes that agenda. Otherwise, it'll be a 2-day extravaganza.
I was just thinking the same thing, your worship. And I was just going to ask Ms. Dolch, even if there's a way some of this can be split up, because the chair has had some long nights and July 12th looks like a very long night.
Councillor, the best I can do is we will try. Things do fall off as we move along. It does happen just naturally, but I can advise though that the summer months are quite packed. We did get 6 or 7 development applications that need to be fit in over the next couple months. So it is going to be a busy summer, but we are trying to do our best to limit public meetings to just 2. I've spoken with the clerk. She's also allowed some public meetings to occur on council nights as well. So we're trying to minimize those impacts for each agenda.
I appreciate that, Ms. Dolch. I think if we can limit the number of public meetings, that would actually help tremendously on just keeping the evenings from going past midnight or whatever they may be. So I do appreciate all those efforts and the consideration to that. All right then. So I guess that's it for me this evening, your worship. Planning and Development Services is now closed. I hand the chair back to you.
Thank you very much, Councillor Dubanow. That takes us to Infrastructure Services, Councillor Noyes.
I think it's Councillor Lubberts.
Is it Councillor Lubberts?
Yeah, I think so.
I'm sorry.
Yeah, I didn't want to interrupt you, Mayor Redekop.
That is so nice of you, Councillor Lubberts.
Infrastructure Services is now in session. We have no presentations or delegations.
Yeah, we do. Remember, this was the addendum. So we have Mr. Boivin from Crystal Beach BIA.
Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, okay. Mr. Boivin, is he here?
Through you, Chair, I do not see Mr. Boivin in the waiting room.
Uh-oh. Does he have a stand-in? Mayor Redekop?
I'm not aware of that. I'm just looking at who is here for the meeting, and I don't see anyone who's not directly associated with us. I see 13 participants, all of whom are council or town administrative staff, is there somebody that maybe is trying to get into the meeting? Mr. Davis?
Yeah, I sent the invite to him earlier in the day. He received it, and there didn't seem to be any questions. I haven't seen him come in and out either, so I'm not sure what the situation is there.
Can you try to contact him by phone? And we can move on, and when he comes back, we can bring him in.
I don't have his phone number, but I'll try to reach out to him via email. That's how I contacted him earlier.
Okay, we'll wait for the email.
Okay.
Or do you want to move on? We'll move on.
Councillor Lubberts, we know that he's going to be addressing specific reports, and aside from the water loss audit report, I think Mr. Boivin may want to touch on the others. So we could proceed with the audit while Mr. Davis is trying to make contact with Mr. Boivin.
IS 27.
Yes.
Yeah, why don't we do that? I'll need to amend. Do we need to amend the agenda?
No.
No? All right, we'll bring forward report IS 27-2021, Annual American Water Works Association Water Loss Audit. Do I have a mover? Councillor McDermott, any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. Oh, Mayor Redekop.
Maybe I was invisible. I just wanted to comment on the excellent report and the excellent results, and the fact that there is some progress being made with respect to our efforts to limit the unaccounted for water. And I thought the report was excellent in outlining the fact that some of the water that isn't paid for is being utilized in purposes that just doesn't allow us to capture the cost. But then there are others that are problematic. But we are working, and in some cases working with the region to ensure that we can limit the lost water. I look forward to the time when we get a report that shows that we're making some significant impacts as well on the inflows into our sewer system, because these are actually savings that help us to rationalize this system. And it's interesting to look at the graphs, because even though the municipality is growing, we are utilizing less water, and we're able to capture the costs of what we're buying from the region at a higher proportion. So excellent report. Thank you, Mr. Walsh. Please pass on to Mr. Pazaric my appreciation with respect to the work that you and he and your teams are doing.
Well, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? None opposed, that is carried. Mr. Kelly, did you contact our delegate?
Yeah, I reached out to him via email. I haven't heard anything back, but I just got his email or his telephone number given to me. I'm just going to give him a quick phone call.
Okay. All right.
So Chair, why don't we take a brief recess? Give Mr. Davis a chance to see if he can connect with Mr. Boivin and come back in 5 or 10 minutes.
Yeah, we'll come back at 20 after.
Sure.
8 minutes.
Okay.
20 after?
Yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Any luck, Kelly?
Yeah, I just spoke to him. So he's on the road on the way back from Tobermory, and he's having technical issues. Like he can't get a stable signal to do video. But I just had a brief discussion with him. He's read Kelly's suggestions. He likes what's being presented. And I said, if there's anything that you want to bring up, talk to Mr. Walsh, and that can be passed on. But he seemed generally happy with recommendations.
Okay, so we'll move on to all of them.
I think so, yeah.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, just he was even cutting in and out on the voice side too. So, but I did say if he has any concerns or comments, he could reach out to Kelly on those. He didn't seem to though.
Potato chips.
You probably can't smell it, but my husband just finished making a strawberry rhubarb pie that just came out of the oven.
Oh, geez.
Yeah, Kathy made some rhubarb crisp yesterday. We got some really good rhubarb in our garden.
I'll be in the office. I'll be in the office on Wednesday if you want to bring me some.
Unfortunately, with COVID, we just can't.
It'll be gone. It'll be gone by Wednesday.
Yeah.
That's a convenient excuse, right, Councillor Noyes? Just with COVID, you just can't share. Just can't share.
No.
As much as I love strawberry rhubarb, you just can't share, right?
Can't share. Do you know that my husband went and picked a bunch of strawberries today, but at one of the, I'm not going to say which one, but one of the farmers markets, it was like $7.95 for a quart of local strawberries. $7.95 for local.
Probably worth every penny.
Well, you can pick them for yourself for $4 a quart. So
I got some yesterday. My sister brought a quart over.
Yeah, anytime my mother-in-law makes strawberry jam or anything like that, she tries to get the fresh local strawberries. It makes a much bigger difference than people realize until you taste them side by side, and then you know.
we used to pick the wild one.
I haven't seen a wild strawberry in years.
Oh, there's some in my backyard right now.
Yeah.
Probably a dozen or two.
So, Mr. Davis, I would think we're still on YouTube, are we?
Yeah,
That's right.
we are. Just be wary of that.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're back at 7:20.
We're back. And Mr. Davis, you weren't able to get a hold of Mr. Boyvan?
I was able to touch base with him via phone. He's having technical issues. He's on the road and can't get a solid connection to do video.
Okay. And he relayed some comments to you that.
Yeah, he just said he just wanted to summarize Kelly's or Mr. Walsh's report, and he seemed to be in favor of the suggestions. And I suggested that he contact Mr. Walsh if he has any further comments.
Okay, so we'll move forward. All right, that brings us to report IS 18-1-2021 supplemental information report on parking at Schooley Road and Erie Road. A mover, Councillor McDermott, any comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the report? None opposed, that is carried. Next report is IS 18-2021 Erie Road on-street parking changes to accommodate economic development. This report was postponed from May 10th, 2021 and moved by Councillor Zanko. And that report is back on the floor. Any comments or questions? Mayor Redekop.
Just some clarification. So this calls for, what would the implications of this be for a business owner that wants to have a patio in a parking spot?
Mr. Walsh?
So they would, through you, Mr. Chair, the business would apply to our town's economic development and tourism services division to do that. They would, I assume, pass along a sketch, and maybe I should ask Daniel to expand on this.
Through the chair, just like to say, I think I misheard a little bit of the question, but I believe it was just asking how the businesses are to apply for the program, if I understand. And so, yes,
Well,
they would provide.
Not so much how to apply, but what the implication will be in terms of the barriers. I mean, I guess, first of all, has any business applied to have a patio in a parking spot?
From my recollection, I don't believe we have had any actually go through to make an application in the parking spot. We have had the inquiry in the past, but it was just due to the limited amount of space and the increased insurance cost of having to have $5 million of liability, naming the town as an additional insured, may have been a deterrent for businesses in the past. But that's, of course, before having this proposal for a much larger space to accommodate.
Well, if I might, Chair, that wouldn't eliminate the insurance cost.
Through the chair, you are correct that there would still be that requirement for any patio that would be on public property. So including the roadway would need to have that $5 million of liability, naming the town as an additional insured.
In terms of the barriers, would a barrier be required if the request to expand the patio was only on the part of the sidewalk?
We'll take that, Daniel, if you don't mind. So in that case, the answer is no. If it's wholly on the sidewalk, it's when they get out into the travel portion of the road, whether it's a parking area or not.
So this may be a moot exercise in the sense that no one may apply to utilize a parking space for the patio for two reasons. One, the cost of the insurance, and two, the cost of a barricade, which, as I understand it, and Chair, perhaps Mr. Walsh can clarify this, if somebody does apply to expand a patio into a parking area, they only have to have one concrete barrier, but that concrete barrier would be erected for the summer.
Through you, Mr. Chair, that is correct. As long as the patio is on the street, they need the concrete barrier at the front of it.
And just if I might further, Chair, so the concrete barrier, once it's erected, would essentially eliminate one parking space, even when, well, I guess the patio would be up, I guess, for the duration. So that would eliminate that parking space or parking spaces for the period of time that the patio is licensed to operate, which would presumably be all summer. Okay. Okay. Thank you very much for the clarification, both of you. Thank you, Chair.
Okay, Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Lubberts. I'm somewhat confused about the three reports and trying to see how they get married to each other as we're going along, just from the explanation today, just that we just heard. And I'm going to have to jump to the report 2 down because on it, the options are weekend only. Three of the five options are for weekends only. So if it's for weekends only and one way, then how does that jive with the barriers being there all week, or like from beginning of summer to the end of summer, if we're only looking at options, or half of the options that we are looking at are for weekends only? So I'm just wondering whether we,
Yeah, I think you're talking about the last motion or the last report for the one way.
That's right.
Yeah, well, maybe Mr. Walsh can explain, but I think that you can still have one way and still have the parking on the other side of the road. that correct, Mr. Walsh?
So through report 18, council's already approved moving all the parking to the north side of the road. If we go with one-way traffic for the weekends, whether it's one weekend or all weekends in summer, during the week, the barriers or the barrels will be moved off the road and will revert to two-way traffic. The on-street patio will still remain on the parking space, and that's when you'll need the concrete barrier. Because the patio will be in live traffic at that time.
Yes, and so the one-way street one-way wouldn't affect parking.
It will remove all of the parking spots.
Yeah.
While it's in effect.
Okay.
On Erie Road.
Councillor Noyes?
I'm taking that for that explanation and like kind of trying to keep all these reports together in my head. What I understand then that the barriers would stay, so the business could use the patio 7 days out of the week. And whether we decide to go with one way or two ways wouldn't change that. The barriers would be where the barriers are, whether it's a one way or whether it's a two way.
Is that correct, Mr. Walsh?
Yeah, through you, Mr. Chair. The only way I can see us getting away from the barriers is if council, and I don't think the BIA wants this, is if council elects to install one-way traffic permanently from July 2nd to September 7th, I think it is, September 8th. Then the patio is out of live traffic and they wouldn't need a barrier. But that's not what the BIA wants.
Councillor Noyes?
Okay, I would think that even if it was, okay, when you're, I'm again, what I'm understanding is that if we close the road completely, you don't need the barriers, or just if it's, okay, but if we have one way, you'll still need the barriers, right?
If it's a part-time one way, we still need the barriers.
No, but even if it's like, okay, part-time meaning part-time through the summer, or part-time through the, from July 2nd to September, or that would be
part-time, sorry, part-time meaning the weekends.
Okay, thank you.
Any other comments or questions? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor of the report? That carries. We've done IS 27-21. And now IS 29-21, one-way traffic on Erie Road between Ridgway Road and Schooley Road.
Chair, I'd like to move option 5A.
Option 5A is on the floor. Let me look at 5A.
It's in the alternative section. It's for one weekend, the civic holiday weekend.
What page is that?
That would be on page 6 under alternatives. It's for the civic holiday weekend from July 29th to August the 3rd.
And you're asking for 5A?
Yes, which would be the BIA absorbs the cost, but I've got some questions that I'd like to ask.
Okay, go ahead.
In terms of the road closures that we typically do in either Crystal Beach or Ridgway or Bridgeburg, does the municipality bear any portion of those costs?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we do undertake those costs within budget. They are minor in nature because it's just a one weekend operation. The operation of closing a road is much, much simpler than setting out one-way traffic. Dealing with no traffic is way easier than dealing with some traffic.
Thank you. So Chair, just to get a handle on what the cost might be, would it be $1,000 for the municipality to close down Ridge Road for one of the holidays that they typically have, or to close off Jarvis for some of the food events that they have?
I think in order of magnitude, that's an appropriate amount. 1,000, 2,000, somewhere in there. You're paying for staff time for those. In the past, we've had the materials we've needed. We may need to look into something different now, changing legislation.
If I might, Chair, then just to further that, so if we're looking at a cost of $6,000 to $7,000, and this is really, if it were one weekend, it's really a pilot project to see whether this is worthwhile for the Crystal Beach BIA to pursue, in the absence of them being able to continue this year to hold their garden market or whatever it's referred to. Would it be unreasonable for the municipality to contribute to some of those costs on a pilot project basis? And I guess, Mr. Chair, I guess maybe I would ask the CAO that. I don't want to put Mr. Walsh in a spot. I know that staff is very prudent and protective of the revenues that the municipality has, but I'm wondering, for a pilot project without a commitment for us to be contributing, should they decide they want to keep doing this on all holiday weekends in the summer, for a pilot project, would it be reasonable for us to consider contributing half of the cost?
Through you, Chair, to the Mayor, it's something you could consider. I have my standard response that I hate to set precedent, but if it's a one-time pilot, we could contribute. I don't know if splitting it 50-50 would be fair, but if the town was to contribute maybe $1,000 or $2,000, that would be fair in my books.
Okay, then Chair, I'd like to amend the motion, still 5A, but that the municipality contribute $2,000 towards the costs of setup and tear down of the equipment for to make it a one-way road for that long weekend, one long weekend, on the basis that it's a pilot project.
So you want to amend 5A for how much, 1,000?
2,000.
2,000? That amendment is on the floor for comment or questions. And Councillor McDermott.
Yes, just one question to that, maybe to Mr. Cook. This whole thing is based on a reopening because of COVID to begin with. The patios is the same thing, the street or the patios. Now, would the town be able to be compensated for COVID-19 funding from the government if we're doing this project somewhere down the line?
Who could answer that? Jonathan?
Please ask Mr. Cookett.
Mr. Cookett?
Yeah, I can take it, and Jonathan can always add to it. Through your chair to the councillor. So we were granted provincial funding for COVID-related expenses. There wasn't a lot of conditions attached to that money we received. I think this being COVID-related, I think we could justify the $2,000 coming from those funds. There again, that's a one-time fund that we received from the province. So if in an event in the future, the request came again, we wouldn't have the COVID funding and it would have to come out of the town resources. So Jonathan may want to add to this, but I believe it does meet the conditions of the provincial funding received.
Thank you.
Yeah, I would just add that that's correct. It was largely the funding we have at this point is unconditional in nature. The earlier IS report did comment on COVID eligibility as well to suggest that it likely would be with the existing amounts we have. That's it.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay, any further comments or questions? Councillor Noyes.
Are we just talking about the Mayor Redekop's amendment to the 2000? Or are we talking about the vote?
Yeah, just the amendment for now.
No comment on.
So just to clarify, the source of funding would be the COVID relief fund that we received from the province. Is that correct, Mr. Cookett or Mr. Jansen?
Yeah, through you, Chair, I think that would be a friendly amendment to the request of the mayor. So I would leave that with the mayor.
Yeah, no, that's fine. I'm quite content to have that as a condition.
Okay, any further comments or questions on the amendment? Seeing none, I'll call the question. All those in favor? That carries. Now we'll move to the report. And any further comments or questions on the report?
Chair, I think I still have the floor.
All right, Mayor Redekop.
Yeah, I just wanted to say that I thought the Let's Talk Fort Erie exercise was really interesting, and there were some very thoughtful comments put in. Item number 47, for an example, was quite lengthy, and the person covered a number of things. He lives on Schooley Road, but covered a number of things, and many of the other individuals who commented provided both sides of the issue here. So I thought that was quite effective, and it was a good suggestion that came from EDTS to get into that. This will be an interesting exercise. And we did receive some emails. One of the questions that I had asked of the BIA was how many businesses would actually benefit from this. And so that's hard to tell, but I noticed that we've received some emails that suggest that some of the businesses think that it may not be a benefit to them. Others think it will be. Others may not be impacted whatsoever. So I think it will be an interesting exercise for the civic holiday weekend to see what transpires. And I'm hoping that council will support this. Thank you.
Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Councillor Lubberts. I do have some concerns in regards to the one-way traffic. I think it will be, and I'm choosing my words carefully, a nightmare for those people who live on the detoured roads. I don't know what the number of cars coming and going on a holiday weekend, particularly if it's a hot holiday weekend. I don't see them ever getting out of their driveways because there's really no place for the cars to slow down or stop to allow them out of their driveways. I think it'll be a nightmare for those on Schooley Road. But again, I'm not necessarily unwilling to try it for a weekend, but I do feel sorry for the residents on Schooley and the other detour road and the residents who are going to be really impacted negatively because of the increased traffic. We're talking about a potential 2,000 extra vehicles per day on their roads if it's a hot sunny day. So anyway, I'm just wondering that we have a ways to go. Like July 29th is about 44 days away from now, or 43 days away from now. I'm wondering if we should be looking at some criteria in regards to what would be the minimum number of businesses participating that we would like to see. Is there a number there? Like if we go through all this and we make it one-way traffic and only 3 businesses want to participate because of a variety of reasons, some not thinking that it's going to help their business, others not being able to put the costs of the insurance and other issues, should we not be looking at the number of businesses we feel need to participate in this? And the other thing that, again, we can't crystal ball gaze, if the province continues to go through their different stages, we might actually be in stage 3 by July 29th, hopefully. So how does that change the business's desires to have a patio outside, and when they're may be allowed to have many more patrons indoors with air conditioning. So I just think there's a number of things that we don't have any control over, and I'm willing to try it, but at the same point, I have some serious reservations about us not setting up some criteria for the number of businesses, and also to see if we're in stage 3, are we still going to proceed with this or not? I think those are questions that probably should be answered. These people, the businesses that think it's a great idea when we're in stage 1 or stage 2, I can understand, but they may not be so willing if we're in stage 3. So again, I am going to support this, but I do feel that we need to tweak it a little bit in regards to conditions and requirements. Thank you.
Mayor Redekop, I saw your hand up. Did you want to comment on something?
Well, just on that, I mean, I think we have to remember that it was the BIA that passed a resolution to do this. And, you know, they weren't aware of what the cost would be. That's been provided to them. They've had an opportunity to consider what the implications might be. We did the Let's Talk Fort Erie to get the feedback. To some extent, because it's a pilot project, we won't know what the results are until it's actually been done. And when it's been done, my view is that if the BIA doesn't think it's successful because it doesn't really have a positive impact for more than a handful of their businesses, I don't see them wanting to spend more money because they don't have a lot of money to begin with. What they're trying to do is generate some type of activity there coming out of the pandemic, knowing that they can't rely upon one of their main events during the course of the summer, which is the market, the food market. So they're looking at ways that they can try to generate some activity. And I mean, it's apparent that the BIA membership may not be unanimous on this. I just don't see this proceeding as a pilot project, not being successful, and them wanting to continue. I just don't think that's going to happen. But once it's happened, we will also know what the impacts of traffic are on Schooley Road. I don't think anybody here should kid themselves that Schooley Road isn't a busy road as it is now, because most people that have cottages to the west of Bay Beach are unlikely to be going down Erie Road to Ridgeway Road. They're going out Schooley Road. Or if they're closer to Point Avenue, they're going out Point Avenue Road. And people that go to the beach, they're going up and down Schooley Road as it is. So they're circumventing the intersection of Ridgeway and Erie roads by going Michener to Schooley and then down to the beach and then back out. So it's a busy road, and we may find that this has problems that have been articulated by some of the people who commented on Let's Talk Fort Erie on the one hand. On the other hand, it may inform us as to things that need to be addressed if they decide that it was a success and they want to go forward. Their view is, the BIA's view is, they don't know until they try, and they'd like to try. And I agree with that. Thank you, Chair.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions? Councillor McDermott.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Just like to direct this to the fire chief. I suspect before this all happens and once you get organized, you're going to be doing the dry run to make sure you can make all your turns and all your due diligence.
Through you, Chair, to Councillor McDermott, you're right. We have planned and will be doing a couple exercises to understand what the impact will be. One on Saturday and one on Sunday. The one on Sunday will target the farmers market that is in the Queen Circle on Sunday mornings. And we're just going to do a dry run with one of our trucks to make sure that we can access. In the meetings that we did have with Mr. Walsh, the mayor, the BIA, president of the BIA, they assured us that if we do have some findings, they would address them. So we'll take them for their word. And if we find some issues that would preclude an emergency response, we'll do what we can to address that.
Councillor McDermott,
Thank you, Chair. That's all.
any other comments or questions? I just have a question to Mr. Walsh. Kelly, during your discussions with the BIA, what is it that they want to accomplish through having a one-way traffic? What are they looking to accomplish at the end of the day?
Well, besides the obvious business development, create an opportunity for more pedestrians to access the area in what they interpret as a safer manner. The sidewalks aren't the widest down there, given the volume of traffic we have. That's the nature of the road. So they feel that closing off the north side of the road will allow the pedestrians to meander about more freely and give it more of a beach crawl atmosphere.
So how are we going to track the results, and how are we going to accumulate the data? And I'm assuming that we're going to have to be doing that now during the summer, so we know what we have and what we're experiencing. And then for this weekend period, right, we're going to have to track and log the data so that we can see what the result is of the weekend. And then we got to compare the two so that we can have a comparison whether this worked or it didn't work, and increase the amount of pedestrians on the street. And who's going to do this?
Mr. Chair, it wasn't our intention at all to count pedestrians. I think, as the mayor pointed out, this is a BIA initiative, and if they feel it's successful, and that's through word of mouth and their cash registers, if they feel it's successful and they want to take on this task or carry it forward into 2022, I believe that's on them. We as the town, we're providing the opportunity to close the road, identifying what the issues are. Following this, I would think in September, early September, as we do every year with the issues down in Crystal Beach and Bay Beach in particular, we'll have a post-mortem meeting. What went right, what went wrong, get the feelings on where we want to go next year.
And like you said, it's a BIA initiative, so when you collect when we get the information, I would assume that the BIA is going to be doing some kind of data collecting too, and not just go by, we had a good weekend, it was successful. I've seen all kinds of good weekends in Crystal Beach, but it didn't pan out the next weekend because it's all weather related. But are they going to be providing any? And for the businesses that don't do so well, how are they going to be included in whether it was successful or not? And how are we going to know? Because I think we need to know as well. For instance, are the people on Derby Road going to be included in whether this is successful or not?
I tend not to assume things, which is always dangerous, but I'm assuming because we haven't talked about pedestrian counts at all, that the BIA is not undertaking them. With respect to businesses not on Erie directly, again, that's the BIA canvassing their members to see if they want to go forward.
And my last question, just out of your experience, do one-way streets create more pedestrian traffic than two-way streets?
It's kind of a loaded question.
I'm not going to ask.
I'm not a businessman. But the trend is to get away from one-way streets and generate two-way streets. I will say that in St. Catharines, the St. Paul Street closure, but again, that's a complete closure, has been very successful, but it's different circumstances there.
Yes, all right. Okay, well, thank you. Any other comments or questions, Councillor Noyes and Mayor Redekop?
Thank you, Councillor Lubberts. Like I said, I do have reservations. I will be supporting this, and I think I said that earlier. I'm thinking about the traffic at corner of Erie and Schooley Road, because right now there is no, it's basically you don't stop on Erie, you stop on Schooley, right? I'm just wondering whether it would make sense to actually have a three-way stop, so that if somebody was coming down Erie Road from the other direction, traveling east, that they would actually be able to make that left-hand turn since they can't proceed forward. Has any thought been given in regards to that? Like if you're on, Megan, I'm anticipating it's going to be a very busy weekend. It's going to be hot and warm, and there's going to be thousands of people wanting to go to the beach. And if I was coming from the other direction, how would I ever be able to turn if there's no stop sign, if I don't get a chance?
Mr. Walsh, could you answer that?
Through you, Mr. Chair, we've taken a preliminary look at the traffic management plan. I don't foresee a temporary stop on Erie Road. The traffic coming opposite on Erie from the east is going to be no less or no more in volume than you have right now.
Yes, but
so
okay.
if they can make a left turn now, they can make one on the long weekend.
Okay, I hope you're right. Anyway, it'll be an interesting weekend to be sure, and I think we do need to get some data on the information, whether it's from the BIA or whatever, and encourage the residents and the businesses to comment. Thank you.
Mayor Redekop?
I just wanted to ask a question. Do we ask the Ridgeway BIA or the Bridgeburg BIA for stats or information when they do a road closure?
I've never asked. I've never seen any. I see Tom shaking his head.
I think we're getting a little ahead of ourselves. I mean, I appreciate the concerns of the residents who live around the BIA, and that would be applicable wherever they are, because there's always noise emanating, there are traffic inconveniences for people. The business people thrive upon the custom of their residents as well. So I would think that if the pilot doesn't work, they're not going to be motivated to want to continue on. And if there are problems that arise, we will hear about them because we will have an uptick in complaints that we receive from wherever. So I'm, as I said, I'm hoping that council will support this, see what happens. And there will be a traffic management plan. That's what Mr. Walsh and the fire chief are going to be working on, so that hopefully they'll be covering some of the concerns that have been raised. Thank you, Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mayor Redekop. And I don't know that when we're having festivals in town that we need to do a data. We do know that whether they're successful or not, but this year exercise is to do something for the weekend and maybe implement it permanently in the future. So that's why if you're going to do something like that, I think you need the data to prove that what you're doing is sound, and it's a good decision and it works. Whereas with no data, we really don't know. And I mean, we can just look at Ridgefest. We closed the street down for the weekend, and we got 20, 30,000 people coming in there a day, to support the festival. We can see that it's successful. But
Chair, if you want to participate in the debate, you have to give up the chair.
Yes, I'll call the question. All those in favor? Opposed of any? That carries. That takes us to new business and inquiries. Any new business or inquiries? Seeing none. The business status report, any comments or questions? Seeing none. Infrastructure services is now in recess. I'll turn the chair back over to the Mayor Redekop.
Thank you very much, Councillor Lubberts. That takes us to scheduling of meetings. Are there any meetings that anyone wishes to announce? Councillor Noyes.
Thank you, Mayor Redekop. There is a traffic coordinating meeting on Wednesday, June 23rd at noon.
Thank you. Any others? Then I wonder if I could ask Councillor Dubanow to advance his specialty.
Yes, Your Worship. I would like to move that council and committee adjourn at 7:57 p.m.
All those in favor? That is unanimous.